Good morning, everybody. Just checking that you can all hear us. If somebody could just comment in the chat box to let us know that you can hear us okay. There's a Q&A section to the side. It will be helpful just to know that you're hearing us okay this morning before we start.
Yeah, someone said yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Gemma Callow. I am the Communications Manager for the Clean Air Zone, and I'm joined today by my colleague Peter Edwards, who is the Principal Clean Air Zone Officer. What we're going to do this morning is we're just going to talk you through the Clean Air Zone, how it's going to operate, so you've got some idea of that, when it goes live, who's affected, etc., and also some of the support available. We are both working from home today, so if there are dogs and children in the background, we apologise. We will try and keep any noise to a minimum. During the course of the presentation, if you have any questions, if you could pop them in the Q&A on, I think, the right-hand side of your screens. What we'll do is we'll run through the webinar presentation and then we'll answer all your questions at the end. So we will get started now. Okay. So the Clean Air Zone, why are we introducing it? So across the UK, air pollution levels are dangerously high. It's now considered a national health emergency. So the government has tasked cities with introducing clean air zones. We are one of the first. Bath goes live in March, we go live in June. But the impacts of poor air quality across Birmingham are contributing to up to 900 deaths every year through conditions such as heart disease, lung disease, asthma. It impacts on our children more than us as adults because they're closer to the ground, closer to the exhaust fumes, so they tend to inhale 3 to 4 times more air pollution than we do. Bus and taxi drivers, obviously, they're sitting in it all day, every day. They are exposed to 3 times more air pollution than everybody else. I won't go through all of these stats, you can see them on screen, but effectively it's having an extremely detrimental impact on all of our health, so we need to take action to bring those levels down to a safe and legal limit. So in Birmingham alone, we know that 50% of all travel journeys are undertaken by car. You can see on screen there. What we also know through research is that every day, 250,000 of those journeys are less than 1 mile, which is about a 20-minute walk. So what we're trying to do through the Clean Air Zone is to get people to consider their travel behaviour, get those non-compliant, high-polluting vehicles off the road, and provide alternatives for people to consider. So Birmingham's Clean Air Zone. As mentioned, the government will be asking cities across the UK to introduce these. There are different levels of clean air zones. In Birmingham, we are going to be a category D. That means that for any non-compliant vehicle, that we will be charging them regardless of whether it's a bus, a taxi, a lorry, a van or a car. You can see there, for example, category C, which is what Bath is going to be. They're not charging private cars, but in Birmingham, we will be charging all vehicles that are non-compliant. So it's important to stress that the Clean Air Zone is not a congestion charge. It's not the same as London. The Clean Air Zone will only charge the most high polluting vehicles. It works out about 1 in 4 vehicles that's going to be charged. The zone will go live on the 1st of June this year, and it's everywhere that is within the A4540 middleway, but not the middleway itself. So you can drive around the middleway, no problems at all. As soon as you enter, if you're in a non-compliant vehicle, you'll be subject to the charges. If your vehicle is compliant, you don't need to do anything, you'll be fine. We have a vehicle checker on the Brumbury's website where you can go and input your registration details that will tell you whether or not you're going to be charged. The charges are £8 a day for cars, taxis and vans, and £50 a day for HGVs, coaches and buses. It's important to know a day is midnight to midnight. It's not 24 hours from when you enter the zone. So if you drive in at 10 PM, leave at 2 AM, you've crossed that midnight threshold. So that means you will be charged twice. You won't receive any kind of notification that you've entered, such as a letter or a text. We are installing over 300 signs all around the perimeter. So it's up to you as a driver to know that you've entered, and it's up to you to make the payments. You can pay 6 days before your visit into the clean air zone, the day of your visit, and up to 6 days after. If you don't pay, you will be fined £120, reduced to £60 if paid in 14 days. There will be an online government payment system set up so that you can pay online or over the phone. There's been a lot of myths reported about how the money from the clean air zone is going to be used. It won't be used to sort your bin collections out and things like that. The money that is created through charges and fines has to be reinvested in transport related projects and policies. So some of the examples are here on screen now. So things such as city centre pedestrianisation, cycle lanes, improved walking routes, etc. Controlled parking zones around the perimeter of the clean air zone so that people can't just park their cars outside and walk in, which impacts on residents. There'll be permits and things introduced for them to protect them, and funding for a hydrogen bus pilot scheme. So those are just some examples of how the money will be spent. It's important to stress this is not intended to be a money-making project for the council. If we make no money from this, then we've achieved our ambition, because it means there'll be no polluting vehicles driving through, high polluting vehicles driving through the zone, and therefore air pollution levels will be significantly reduced. So for us, this is not about generating revenue, it's about getting those air pollution levels down to a safe and legal limit. So what vehicles will and won't be charged? So on screen here is a list of some of the vehicles that will not be subject to the charges. So Euro 4 standard petrol vehicles or better, that loosely, and it's important to stress, loosely translate into most vehicles from 2006 onwards. For diesel vehicles, it's a Euro 6 standard or better, which is loosely translated as most vehicles from September 2015 onwards. You can also see there gas Euro 6, electric, hydrogen fuel cell, and hybrid electric, subject to those Euro 4, Euro 6 standards, are also exempt. So if your vehicle meets these standards, you will not be charged and you will not be required to do anything further. As mentioned, if you go on our Brumbury's website, there is a link to the government vehicle checker where you can input your registration number and it will tell you whether or not you will be charged. With that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Peter. He's going to talk you through some of the support that's available, including temporary exemptions and financial incentives, and he will talk these through with you now.
Thank you, Gemma. Oh, we're getting some feedback. Do you need to go on mute, Gemma?
With me.
See if that takes it away. There you go. It seems to have gone. Apologies if you're getting any feedback there, if we've had any technical difficulties so far. So just to go back on the point Gemma just made, somebody did actually ask a question about the vehicle checker. So I've published that in the chat. That takes you directly to the government web page, but it's also on the front page of our Brumbury's website. And just to say that we can share these slides and that this webinar is being recorded, so we can share this with you afterwards, so you don't necessarily need to take notes, or if something comes up afterwards that you wish you'd asked, then there'll be opportunity to contact us or to check the slides again. So yeah, my name's Peter Edwards. I'm the Principal Clean Air Zone Officer with overall responsibility for delivering the exemptions as part of the Clean Air Zone support package. So we know that the clean air zone is a new and potentially quite daunting thing for a wide range of people in the city. We know it's the right thing to do, but we also know that people are going to need support to adapt to it. So in 2018, there was a consultation. There was some misinterpretation as to what that consultation was about. It was not, shall we do a clean air zone? It was, we have to do a clean air zone. It's the right thing to do. Who and how should we support people to adapt to it? That consultation received something like 11,000 responses, the most a Birmingham City Council consultation has ever received. And off the back of that feedback, we've come up with a package of measures to support the people that are most likely to be impacted by the implementation of the zone. So the first package of measures is exemptions. These are mostly temporary exemptions, as you can see on screen, to help people who live, work, or operate businesses within the clean air zone. So if you're a resident within the clean air zone, you can access up to a 2-year exemption from charging if you drive a non-compliant vehicle. It's important to note that these exemptions start on the 1st of June 2021. They do not start from, so if you apply after the 1st of June 2021 for a 2-year exemption, you do not get 2 years from the date that it's approved, you get 2 years from the 1st of June. So we're encouraging everyone to get their applications in as soon as possible. So residents can have up to 2 years, and then people who are working in the clean air zone, so probably the biggest target audience for this webinar, working in the clean air zone and earning less than £30,000 a year and working for more than 18 or more hours a week within the clean air zone, they can access a 1-year exemption. Commercial vehicles, so that could be vehicles operated by your respective university's fleets or by your suppliers or people that run businesses in the city, can also access a 1-year exemption. The other one, these ones are all available to apply online on our website at the moment. They've been open for a year, nearly a year now. Obviously, we've been delayed due to the COVID pandemic, but these applications are open. It's an online platform. All you have to do is to create an account like you would on any other website and then upload some proof documents. Visitors to hospital, I can see some questions starting to pop up, so we will address these towards the end, so we're not ignoring you, but otherwise I'll keep chopping and changing. The other one noted on the slide is visitors to hospitals. So this is if you visit the Children's Hospital and 2 other named medical centres that offer out of hours or emergency services within the clean air zone, then you will be in it, and you visit them in a non-compliant car, you will be able to access an exemption for that. That will be given in the form of a voucher that you will get and then credit online, which will mean you're not charged. So those are the main exemptions at the moment. If you just move the slide on, Gemma. So in addition to those main headline exemptions, and those are the ones we expect to see the most of, the most impacted. On the screen now, you will see some other groups that can access exemptions. So it's important to note that a blue badge does not give you an exemption from the clean air zone. However, if you have a disabled passenger tax classification for your vehicle, then you will have an automatic national exemption from all clean air zones. So this is a tax classification that is on your V5C logbook and can be added if you're in receipt of certain disability benefits. Motorcycles will not be charged. That's a permanent exemption. Showman's vehicles, so this is fairground vehicles. Historic vehicles, so vehicles over 40 years old. And then your specialist vehicles, such as recovery vehicles, the emergency services, they will be able to access exemptions, but these exemptions will be dealt with privately, kind of via a different process from the ones detailed on the other page. And then community and school transport can also access an exemption. So that's the likes of your ring and ride, and that they can have an exemption too. If you move us on, please, Gemma. So the exemptions are there in order to give affected groups some breathing space to work out what you're going to do. What we also have is a supporting package of funding. So we have got £35 million from central government to support people to upgrade their fleets and upgrade their vehicles or change the way they travel. The one that is probably of most interest to people on this call is our scrappage scheme. So that is for people who are working in the clean air zone. So if you drive a non-compliant vehicle and you meet the criteria, that the earning less than £30,000, etc., then in the coming months, it's not ready for application yet. You will be able to apply to us to check if you're eligible. If we deem you eligible, you'll be able to take that vehicle, non-compliant vehicle, to our scrappage partner, who we're in the process of procuring at the moment. They will scrap that vehicle for you, give you a certificate, then you take that certificate to another named partner, and you will get £2,000 off the price of a compliant vehicle. That is one option. The other option is that you would also be able to get in, or you could get £2,000 to be put on a Swift card. So we're calling that a mobility credit. The final option is that you may be able to keep hold of your vehicle, but also access up to £1,000 onto a Swift card. This is not open for applications yet, but will be ahead of the launch of the zone. We also have funding available for small to medium enterprises in the West Midlands who operate HGVs and coaches. That's perhaps not so relevant to the audience on this call. And then £15 million to help support our Birmingham licensed Hackney carriage and private hire drivers. And this is proving to be an incredibly popular scheme. I think they've already processed 1,000 grant applications. So the fleet of Birmingham taxis will start to get cleaner and more modern as we go forward. If you move me on, please, Gemma. So the Clean Air Zone is part of a bigger picture. You may have heard about Birmingham's transport plan. Since COVID, we have also published an emergency transport plan, which accelerates some of the work that was detailed in the original transport plan published last January. The transport plan has four main visions, and you can see them on screen here, and I'll just run through the key elements of what the transport plan wishes to achieve. There is a desire to reallocate road space, and to reallocate that road space away from private motor vehicles and back to people who are walking, cycling and using public transport. So whether that is by installing bus lanes, bus gates, improving, widening footways, improving the public realm so that people can walk, or installing cycle lanes. And you may well have seen some of this across the city with the emergency measures where cycle lanes have gone up in with the use of bollards to offer some protection, and pavements have been widened in shopping areas, Erdington, Kings Heath, Ladypool Road, a number of areas where this has been done, and removing parking to give more space to people. It's been done on my local high street for certainly. The next one is to transform the city centre. I'll just stay on that slide for a second, sorry Gemma, is to transform the city centre, again to prioritise those groups that I mentioned previously, to make it a better place to walk and cycle, and to make it easier for public transport to pass through. The kind of headline act of that process is the idea of splitting the city centre into cells, so that private motor vehicles can all drive in, but they cannot drive across. And if you want to drive from, say, Digbeth to, let's say, the Jewellery Quarter, you will not drive across the city centre to do that. You can drive in and you can go and do your business in Digbeth, and then you need to come back out onto the Ring Road and go around. However, public transport, cycling and walking would still be able to cut across the city. The next one is to prioritise active travel, especially in local neighbourhoods. So this could be measures such as low traffic neighbourhoods, where making walking and cycling the natural choice for people for these short journeys. We already heard the quite startling statistic about the number of vehicle journeys under 1 mile, and we want to make an environment where walking and cycling is the first choice for those journeys, those short journeys. And finally, managing demand by using parking as a kind of a control, a demand management tool. So removing free parking, removing parking altogether, in order to disincentivise people to drive into the city centre, but also across the city as well. So these are all the measures that are wrapped up in the transport plan. You can find that on the Birmingham City Council website. If you want to move us on, please, Gemma. I think this is one of the last slides, but it's an important one. It is, as it says at the top, the Clean Air Zone is an enabler of change. We're already seeing the change across the city's fleet. So a lot of those 1,000 taxi applications that I just mentioned, for example, those drivers upgraded their fleet 6 months ago because they knew the Clean Air Zone was coming. And we're now retrospectively giving them some funding towards that. So the fact that the Clean Air Zone is coming is meaning people are changing their vehicles or changing the way they travel. And this all fits in with the council's ambition to become net zero carbon by 2030. So the Clean Air Zone might be the figurehead and might be the most famous measure that's being put in place, but it fits in with a wide range of others. And then you can see below some of the things that we are also doing. So a massive piece of work to install electric vehicle charging across the city. 300 plus points of contracts been signed to do that, and those will start to be installed in 21. 20 hydrogen buses have been part funded in collaboration with National Express. Those will hit the city's streets in 21 as well. And also we will be looking to purchase and lease up to 50 electric Hackney carriages to encourage the adoption of this technology within the fleet. It's quite easy for private hire drivers to become compliant. You can go out and buy a 2008 petrol Skoda. However, for a Hackney carriage driver, it's not so simple. There's only one on the market, and it's quite expensive. So these are the other schemes that are being put in place to help people adapt and enable people to change. I think that's the last slide if you want to move us on, Gemma. Yeah, so there's our website. On the front of our website, there's 3 main tiles: check your vehicle, apply for an exemption, or find out more about financial incentives. You can also sign up for a monthly newsletter. So as soon as that scrappage scheme goes live, we will obviously email everyone on that list and tell them. There's a wealth of information on our website, case studies about what other people are doing, what other employers are doing, what individuals are doing. Please do take a look, and then there's the usual social avenues. So I can see there's about 13 questions. So what we're going to do now, we'll take the slides off the screen. Gemma will kind of act as a moderator and feed the questions through to myself. I will come on camera, so you're looking at something other than slides. And if we can't, just to say, if we can't answer any of the questions, we will take them away and we will ask you to email us, or we will email you. So we just, Gemma, do we just need to publish these, or do I? Okay. The first question I can see from Andrew, hi Andrew, is community vehicles get an exemption? Yes, they do. You're specifically mentioning the student union fleet. The definition of a community vehicle is a vehicle that operates on a not-for-profit basis and needs to have something called a Section 19 or a Section 22 permit. So if that student union vehicle had that permit, then it would be eligible. But Andrew, you've got my email. Maybe if we take that one offline. When it says individuals travelling into the clean air zone, does it mean that only one person can travel in? So in order to be eligible for the exemption, you must be the registered keeper of that vehicle. So we are not. So we will determine your eligibility by that. So you need to show us that you're the registered keeper of the vehicle, you earn less than £30,000 a year, and you work in the clean air zone. So those are the pieces, the 3 evidence pieces that we will ask you for. So it depends. So if the vehicle is in your husband's name who earns more than £30,000 a year, then that isn't eligible. I hope that makes sense. Our terms and conditions are all on the website. And if I should have said also, we have our mail. We need to add it to that final slide. Actually, we have our cleanair@birmingham.gov.uk. So if that doesn't make sense, or if you need further clarification, drop a line there. But the most important thing to say is that in order to be eligible for the exemption, you need to be the registered keeper of the vehicle. Therefore, your name is on the V5C. Anna, are there any exemptions for students? There is not a specific exemption for students. If you are a resident in the clean air zone and your vehicle is registered within the clean air zone, you may be eligible for the residence exemption. There's not a specific exemption for students. My company supplies medicine to hospitals. Can we apply for an exemption? If it's a commercial vehicle and it's registered within the clean air zone, then you can apply for a commercial vehicle exemption. But if the company is outside of the clean air zone, then no, you cannot. Again, the terms and conditions are on our website. Okay, good question. Is the vehicle checker the absolute for checking the Euro 4 standard? I'm aware of people who have Euro 4 standard cars, but on the checker their cars are coming up as having to pay. So the vehicle checker, which is on the front page of our website, and I think I've shared it in this chat, is the government's vehicle checker tool that we ask you to use. That vehicle checker uses your vehicle registration date as its key determinant of your compliance. We are aware, and it has vastly improved, of some instances where a vehicle that was registered close to the first date that Euro 4 or Euro 6 was introduced, and we're seeing it more with Euro 6 than with Euro 4. So if you have a Euro 6 diesel and it was registered in, let's say, June 2015, sometimes the vehicle checker comes back and says that you will have a charge to pay, even though it is Euro 6, because it's before September 2015. There is a clear path to having this resolved. All you need to do is use the contact form on the vehicle checker form and contact the DVLA to have your vehicle record updated. But you do need to do that. If you just kind of ignore it and say my vehicle is Euro 4 and the vehicle checker says it's not, then you may be liable to charges. So I would encourage you or friends or colleagues or whoever's mentioned that to explore that and investigate that further. Would a self-hire moving van be exempt? No. So if the vehicle is non-compliant, it would have to pay, and that would be up to the hire company, I guess, as to whether you, the customer, pays or they, the operator, pays. But no, it would not be exempt. Scrappage scheme be household income or individual earnings. So you apply as a single person. We don't ask to see anything about. So it's your person, you being the person that works in the clean air zone. We would ask to see your payslip or your P60 and your V5 document to show that you are the registered keeper of said vehicle. I applied for the 1-year exemption about 2 weeks ago. It is very when I'm likely to receive a response to my application. I would imagine, given it's my team that is processing them and I've got an eye on it, that your application has already been processed. If you haven't heard from us, that probably means that it's been approved. The reason that you have not received anything is that because we are not going to issue those permits. So it's been approved, but it will be issued closer to the go live date. So there's nothing to worry about. If we haven't contacted you and said we need you to clarify this, then it's likely it's been approved, and it will be issued nearer the time. And at that point, you will receive an email confirming your exemption. But if you log into the system, you can look at your account and you can look and it will tell you the status of your application. But if you haven't heard from us in 2 weeks, it's probably been approved. Would people still be able to apply for the scrappage scheme even if they haven't been driving into work for the last year or so because of COVID? Yes. We don't ask to see evidence of how many times you're driving in. We ask to see evidence of how many hours a week you work, and that is done by a workplace letter from your HR or your line manager. But we know that the world has changed, but in our view, if you work in the clean air zone and you want to take a non-compliant vehicle off the road and replace it with a compliant one, that's positive for us. So we don't ask to see evidence of how many times you're coming in, and we know I haven't been into the office at all for a meeting or for work since last March, so we know the world's changed and there's a lot of uncertainty. Public transport exceptionally expensive as well as unreliable. Not support or exempt. So I've detailed all of the exemptions that are available already. There is ongoing work, as we talked about, with the transport plan to improve public transport. One of the key issues with public transport in in my view, is the fact that it's held up too much by private vehicles. So some of that reallocation of road space should hopefully give more space to buses. We know that there's upgrades going onto the cross-city line and other train and tram operators. So we know that public transport isn't perfect in this city. And the cycle routes aren't perfect in this city, but since the beginning of the pandemic, numerous cycle lanes have been installed, and there are lots of plans for more. We recently received the second lot of funding, which I think tranche 2 from the Emergency Active Travel Fund from central government, which I think was 14 to 16 million pounds. So you will see more cycle infrastructure available, and some of that can be spent on public transport as well. And as Gemma pointed out, revenue from the clean air zone can also be used for that sort of things.
Just to jump in there as well, please. Sorry. I think there's an echo on the line again. I did have a meeting with National Express this week regarding public transport provision, and they have said for larger organisations, if there is a demand that is not being met, they would like to speak to you, get some information on data as to how many people would use the service if it were available. So, for example, if the nearest bus is missing people by the end of a 5-minute shift, etc., they would like to speak to you, and they will look at investigating route options and travel deals for organisations where there'd be some benefits. So we can share their details with you as well after this meeting, because that may provide some help to you if that's an option. Sorry to interrupt, Pete.
No, that's helpful. And yeah, on that front, before I took this role, I worked at the University of Birmingham, and my role was to encourage people to take more sustainable modes of travel. And what we identified via our travel survey was, at the University of Birmingham, we had a lot of staff living in kind of the Moseley area of the city, and they were all driving, and it's about 2-3 miles. What we realised, there was no reliable bus route, and we petitioned National Express, and eventually, not long before I left, actually, they put on an extension or a slightly different routed version of the number 1 bus, which did serve the university. So it can be done if the demand is there. Obviously, they're commercially driven, so we needed people to then get on that bus, but it can be done. So that's great that National Express have said that. So perhaps we can be a conduit to get that information to them, or we can provide a link perhaps in the follow-up to this webinar. Lee, really good question. When will parking permits for residents just outside the ring road be put in place? There's not one definitive answer for that. The schemes some of the schemes have already been designed and have an implementation plan. So there's one around the St George's area. There's a Highgate area one, which is close to being implemented. Some of it will be reactive, and is being monitored, and if becomes an issue, will be implemented. Some of them are already being implemented, so it's a kind of fluid process, but the funds from the clean air zone will be used to do that, to address that. Good question. Yeah, we didn't cover this. So if you enter the zone several times during the day, will you have to pay every time you enter, or is it only one charge? No, it is only one charge. So as Gemma said, it runs from midnight to midnight. So if you enter the zone at 5 past midnight, you can come in and out of that zone as many times as you want until 11:59 the following evening. But as Gemma pointed out, and it's key to stress, if you enter at 11 p.m. and leave at 2 a.m, you are crossing the threshold. That is 2 charging days, and you will be liable for 2 charges. So as many times as you like in one charging period, so midnight to midnight, but just be aware of the crossing over the midnight boundary. Joe, similar to the other person, if you haven't heard from us, it's likely that your application has been approved. You don't need to do anything. You can log in and check. So if you log into the application portal, it will give you the status of your application, and we will issue that nearer the time, and at which point you will receive an email confirming that you've been added to our exemption list. Why is the clean air zone limited to the city centre rather than the whole of Birmingham? Great question, because that's where, when the monitoring was done, that the air pollution is worst. That's not to say that there aren't hotspots across the city. I know where I live in Kings Heath, the Kings Heath High Street has got a monitor on it, and it regularly exceeds limits. And I'm sure everyone on the call would suggest that a high street or a road near them absolutely is in need of some action. What I would say is that the clean air zone is seeking to address the very worst part, which is the city centre. What we've seen in London is that they're extending there, so they've got their ultra low emission zone, which is right in the city of London, and towards the end of this year or next year it will go all the way out to the North Circular. But implementing a clean air zone, as we are learning every day, is challenging and is a massive project. So we are doing the city centre first, but all the other measures within the emergency transport plan, by giving people more space to walk and cycle and to public transport, are also looking to address air quality. So we also have the air quality action plan, which is a citywide project to monitor and improve the air quality. So the clean air zone, as I keep referring to, is kind of like the figurehead, is the main element, but there's lots of other elements of to address air quality across the city. Question about your 2005 car not complying. That's probably because it's Euro 3, and I will likely buy a 2006 version with the same engine, but does comply. Well, it would have a slightly different engine. It would be a Euro 4, so it will help. It will have better emissions. The tunnels, the A38 tunnels from Bristol Street to Aston University are included in the clean air zone. So if you're going to drive from Bristol Street to the Aston Expressway and the motorway in a non-compliant vehicle, you would have to pay the charge. The tunnels are included. Can I transfer my vehicle ownership to my other half who lives in the city centre and then apply for an exemption? That's up to you. As I say, the exemption is for the registered keeper of the vehicle. If we come as a one-off in the car, can we still be exempt? I'm not sure I understand. If you're eligible for an exemption, I would encourage you to go online and apply for that exemption. I'm not sure about the one-off nature of that question. We've already covered that. The tunnels are included. Yes, Roger, driving an electric vehicle. As I said, we've just signed a contract with a supplier to install more than 300 electric vehicle charging points across the city, and that will focus in the city centre initially, but then we'll spread out across the city because we know that Birmingham is quite behind on that. So yes, there is a lot more electric vehicle charging coming into the city soon, and you'll start to see that in the coming months. Scrappage scheme will be open for applications in the next couple of months and before the zone goes live. I cannot give an exact date. No, you do not have to live in Birmingham to be eligible. You just have to be eligible as a worker. If you're taking someone to New Street Station to drop them off, what do you suggest? Well, to do it in a compliant vehicle. Otherwise, you would need to pay the charge. There isn't a one-off exemption for that circumstance. There's a question here about I earn 30k. So if you earn more than 30k, you're not eligible. If you earn less than 30k, you are eligible. Will it create a social gap because some people who work in the city centre who can't afford the cars that is required to enter? What's your opinion? There is an argument for that. Personally, if you look at the evidence, poorer people as a percentage don't own cars as many, that are more reliant on public transport. I think so. By improving public transport and taking unnecessary vehicle journeys off the road, you hopefully are improving the situation for people who use public transport who tend to be of a lower income. The other thing to point out is in order to be compliant, you do not have to drive a brand new Nissan Leaf electric vehicle. You can have a 2007 petrol vehicle, which is more affordable. So it doesn't have to be a brand new electric vehicle. Sorry to hear that I've been frozen on the screen for a few minutes. I hope that has remedied itself. I can see myself moving, but apologies if I'm frozen. So there's a question here about LPG conversions. The important thing to note about an LPG conversion is that if there's still a combustion engine element left in the vehicle, which in my understanding of LPG conversions there is, then the remaining diesel element of the car still needs to be Euro 6. So you can't have a Euro 5 diesel, convert it to LPG, but have some remaining combustion engine there and be exempt. But the vehicle checker should tell you this. Daniel, question about modelling of what impact the CAS will have on current air pollution. Absolutely, we can send links. Right, it's all on the Birmingham City Council website. Following the consultation is quite a large document covering the modelling and the anticipated impact. So we are mandated by government to deliver the clean air zone, deliver legal air quality limits within the quickest possible time, and the modelling has been done to suggest that we should be able to do that by the end of 21. Some of that modelling has to be changed as a result of the impact of COVID, and it's really difficult to forecast because we don't know what traffic levels are going to return to. I, for one, probably will never go back to the office 5 days a week. I didn't drive anyway, but we don't know how this is going to affect travel patterns. We don't know how the delay to the clean air zone will have naturally led to some improvement in the fleet anyway, because people tend to update their vehicles, and as they update their vehicles, they tend to be more compliant and cleaner. So it's not a straightforward thing to do, but yes, lots of modelling has been done, and we have, as far as I'm aware, one of the most extensive air quality monitoring networks in the country, if not the most, and we've installed more with government funding that we got to deliver the clean air zone. Concerns about pushing traffic from the A38 to the ring road, that is a concern, but we hope that people will begin to shift their journeys as well. We need to see modal shift. We don't want to see just people going from non-compliant to compliant vehicles. We want them to move on to public transport or walking and cycling. It won't happen overnight. We know that our public transport perhaps isn't as good as London's, but it is improving and there are other options. So it will be monitored. Should the council not wait until the transport infrastructure update has been completed with the likes of local train stations in South Birmingham? In my opinion, no. This is a public health emergency. We're seeing 900 plus people a year die. I live in King's Heath. That train station has been fabled for many years, and there's still not a timetable for it to be delivered. So no, personally, I don't think you can wait. Building train stations and getting train lines up and running takes many years, and I don't think we can wait for that. So that my opinion would be no, you cannot wait for the public transport. The public transport is getting better, and there are other options, and if we can get people out of their private motor vehicles, then the bus services will also improve. If you get a good question, if you get a fine because you forgot, how would you receive the fine? Yes, you would receive a penalty charge notice through the post, same as you would if you drove through a red light or speeding, and that is £120 or 60 if paid within 40 days. Cycling on roads is increasingly unsafe and some users are, so as I say, the Birmingham Transport Plan is looking to improve conditions for cycling across the city, and I've seen it myself. having used the lane in Small Heath and other areas that previously had no infrastructure whatsoever. With regards to electric scooters being inconsiderate, I'm afraid people are inconsiderate in their nature, whatever. There's always a small portion of people who are inconsiderate on bikes, cars, buses, scooters. I'm afraid that's human nature. I'm not sure that there's anything the council can do, but I think the introduction of the electric scooters is welcome. They've been shown to be massively successful on the continent, but unfortunately we can't. There are people who will misbehave in whatever form of transport they take, unfortunately. Will there be free parking for EV drivers to encourage EV take-up in Coventry? It's not something I've heard of. I doubt it. We want people to, yes, we want people to use electric vehicle. Well, they might get free parking while they're charging. I don't know if there'll be EV free charging in car parks because they're an electric vehicle. That's not something I've heard about. You're showing us a charge in Birmingham, but not in Bath. Well, in Bath, they're not charging private vehicles, so that will be why. And London, they use a slightly different, well, they use their own vehicle checker. We don't know the maths behind the system behind their vehicle checker. It sounds like you may have a vehicle that is close to the Euro 4 or Euro 6 cutoff date. So as the other person, I would recommend contacting the DVLA to get your vehicle checked and updated. Will the tunnels remain open to drive through when the city centre is split into zones? As far as I'm aware, for the time being, yes. Yeah, Lee, we've already talked about the impact on the ring road. London zone charges apply on weekdays. I think you're confusing with the congestion charge. The London ultra low emission zone is 24/7, similar to ours. Yes, we will share the slides and the recording, and we look like we might have got to the final question. Why are there parking meters at train stations if you're encouraging drivers to use public transport? That would be a question for Transport Forward West Midlands or the train operators themselves. That question about e-scooters and their legality and personal use, again, I think the government are looking at it. It's not really for, that's national law. I would hope so. That, as I said before, they've been very popular and very popular and successful on the continent. I would hope that they're allowed and legalised, but that's not for me to. Birmingham City Council can't implement that. I think it says 40 questions, so thank you so much. I think we've covered them all. If you think of as I said, if you think of a question after, I'll put the email address here, cleanair@birmingham.gov.uk. Please drop us a line if you have
had one more question, Pete. I can publish.
Oh, okay. Hi, Kat. Yes. So yeah, the exemption is the cameras and the exemption cannot tell what you're driving into the city centre for. So if you have a worker's exemption and then you drive into the Bull Ring on a Saturday afternoon, then the exemption still stands. The exemption is not Monday to Friday or only for driving for work purposes. No. So yeah, if you get a worker's exemption, your car is exempt from clean air zone charging for 1 year, whether you're driving to work or whether you're driving for go shopping or whatever. Yeah. Oh, we've got another one. Auto pay. No, there is not auto pay available with our clean air zone. If you're a fleet operator, you will be able to set up an account for multiple vehicles, but if you're just an individual, you'll have to pay daily. Any more, Gemma?
I think that's everything.
Okay.
Questions?
43 is a pretty good amount of questions. So thank you for signing up for the webinar today. Apologies for any technical difficulties. We will send a follow-up email to everyone who registered, so if colleagues didn't manage to join the call, they will still get the slides. and please share them. We'll probably put them on our website, on our YouTube channel as well, but we will send all of that round as kind of a follow-up. But if there are no further questions, I think me and Gemma will bring this to a close. So thank you very much for joining, and please visit our website, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
Gemma. Thank you. Bye.